From now on, there is no numericals or problems to be solved, so I will not be requiring any board. So we'll be using slides only, 3 more topics. And I would like to show the textbook. So far, I haven't insisted on any particular textbook for you to study for this course, because we will be using PPT and some YouTube links and HTML links, etc., Medium and data science links. But then I have also shared many books for you to follow. But for this particular topic, LSTM, I prefer everybody to follow this book. Only one chapter you have to study from the exam point of view, and what I am going to cover in this topic is from this textbook only. So this is long short term memory networks with Python by Jason Brownlee. So from this book, I will be doing one chapter, the foundation chapter, what are LSTMs, and then only this chapter 1. And then this back propagation through time, all this will be covered in PPT, but you can read it from the book also. So I will quickly glance through and show what is the topics covered in the book. So here in chapter 1, what is LSTM? It is covered, and then basically it is used for sequence prediction problems. So what are the different types of sequence prediction will be covered. Then why we need LSTM and what is the architecture, applications, only those will be covered in this chapter. Okay. And then in chapter 2, how to train an LSTM or a recurrent neural networks, etc. And backpropagation. We have studied earlier backpropagation network, and this is backpropagation through time. The earlier BPN will have a problem in while using it for a recurrent neural network. So we'll be discussing what is that issue and how that can be overcome by modifying it slightly for the LSTM part. So that will be discussed here. So chapter 1 and 2, ideally you have to read from this book. So now we'll move on to the PPT. So I have informed you all to go through one video, to watch a video and come. So have you all seen that? Can I have some answer? Is anybody speaking and I am unable to hear?
No.
Yeah. Yeah, tell me. I have asked whether you have all watched the video or not. There was one video which will be talking about the food, what food to be prepared for dinner. Have you all watched that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay. So basically in that example, in that video, what is being shown is if there is an order to be followed, if it is sunny or if he is not going out, what he will prepare. And then in a day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, what is the order in which the food is prepared. So if it is Tuesday, we can decide, or we can expect, okay, this is the dinner that is going to come for today. Based on what was prepared yesterday and what day it was yesterday. So that is the idea to be remembered. Okay, so that is the concept and idea to be taken forward. Okay, so the topics are like this: introduction, applications, and then how the recurrent neural network works, and then how it is different from a feed-forward neural networks, and then what is LSTM. RNN and LSTM are not same. And then how the error is calculated, that is through backpropagation, and then this is called as a backpropagation through time. And then there are two issues of standard RNN. One is through exploding gradient and vanishing gradient. All of you know about this gradient, we have discussed earlier. So now if you consider our human brain, there are 4 different important regions where the information is stored, and what type of information is stored also is important, and then how the information will be retrieved is also important. Okay, so in our human brain, basically there are 4 lobes: frontal, temporal, occipital and parietal lobes, and how or what type of information is stored in each part, that actually varies. If you see the temporal lobe, it is actually similar to the conventional ANN. That means the traditional ANN, where all the neurons are connected to all the neurons from the input layer. All the neurons are connected to the hidden layer, and from that it is connected to the next hidden layer, and so on in a feed forward network. That means they are tightly connected. That means information will be communicated through the dendrites in all the direction. That means the information will be communicated through every dendrite to whichever the neuron is connected to. Okay, so that way architecture is happening in the frontal lobe. So the information, whatever is being stored in the frontal lobe will be carried forward for the subsequent layers. Okay, whereas in the occipital lobe, if you take, it is similar to our convolutional neural network, where you will have only sparse connections. Not all the neurons are not connected to each other. So here uh, in the CNN, how we are using it for recognition of images, objects, or music, or speaker, or some text, etc. Similarly, in the real life also, if you want to recognize object, or if somebody is speaking, suppose if you are listening to music, and even if you close your eyes and then if you listen to the music, you can say that it is Chitra, it is Janaki Amma, you can tell that. So how that can be done? It is because you are able to match your match the pattern of the voice with the already existing pattern that is being stored in the brain. So that pattern matching happens through the cells that are being connected through the occipital lobe. And then coming to the frontal lobe, this is where a short-term memory, like what has happened recently, today morning or yesterday, that type of information will be stored in the short-term memory. Suppose if I ask a phone number of my friend, then somebody whom I'm meeting in a shop, if I ask a phone number, maybe that moment I will remember the 10 digits and I will call and then I will speak. So that is only for a few minutes I can remember. The next day, if you ask that random number, I may not be able to tell. And the subsequent day, if you ask, I may not be able to say. Whereas my own close friends or family member phone numbers, every day I am calling. Even if I store it or not, I can remember and then I can call. So that is a long-term memory, whereas short-term memory is one which is being used. The content will be stored only for a few minutes or one day or so. Okay. And the last one is the parietal lobe. So far, no network has been developed similar to the architecture of the parietal lobe. So our human brain is amazing with the different ways in which the networks or the dendrites are connected and how information are stored. Till now, it is always a mystery for the researchers and the scientists to exactly model a human brain and then develop something artificially. Okay. So here in the table it is mentioned, and what are those under supervised and unsupervised. So we have done so far the ANN and then CNN. ANN for classification regression and CNN for computer vision we have seen. And then recurrent neural networks, it is used for time series analysis, mainly the data which is based on the time information. That means suppose if you are monitoring the temperature or pressure or the weather forecasting, then every minute the details of the temperature or pressure will be noted and then data goes and then analysis is happening. So for that purpose, this RNN will be used. And then the unsupervised are self-organizing maps, coherent self-organizing maps. That is mainly for clustering, where the Euclidean distance is a measure used to find if there are many clusters, then to which particular cluster the element should be mapped or classified. Then deep Boltzmann machine and then autoencoders. All these are used for recommendation systems. And out of all the three unsupervised, we will be discussing only autoencoders later. That comes under the unsupervised. So now we will be looking at why we need a RNN, because we need RNN only to use the data that was used previously, and we have to see when a feed-forward network is available, why do we need an RNN? The difference is feed-forward network just passes the information in one direction only. Whereas in an RNN, the output is again fed back as an input. So that is the reason we need a RNN. Because the output goes back as an input. So that is how the internal memory or the data is once again restored or taken as an input. That is the way in which it is storing the previous data. That is why it is called as an internal memory. Okay, and this concept is used in Siri and in Alexa, things like that. And because of this output that is being fed back as an input, the RNN can remember the previous input, and then based on that it can predict what can come next. So if you have watched the dinner preparation video, if I think it is pizza or sushi, something, three different burger, three different items being prepared, and then if it is sunny or if it is rainy, the cook will do some items. And in one more example, if it is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, so in a week, a series of list of items will be prepared. So I can just make out, okay, if it is sunny means today this is the dinner, and also what was prepared yesterday. So based on these two inputs, I can make out what is going to come for my dinner today. So that is how. Similarly, in a time series data or in a speech, especially in case of the stock market prediction, if anybody is working on a project using stock market prediction or say seat admission in a university based on the previous data or weather forecasting based on previous data, you can very well use this concept RNN and you can go ahead. So basically what is happening is if for any particular company, if the Sensex value is increasing and if I invest this much amount, if I get this much dividend, then I keep on investing more on that particular company. Say ABSL, if I invest in mutual fund, if I get more dividend and profit, the value more than the unit that is being allocated, then I keep on investing in the same because that is growing. So what I'll do is day by day, people, this is a very big business. So people who keep investing, they keep looking at the data. Yesterday, what was the Sensex value, and this company, what was their index growth? Likewise, they keep looking at the graph and then they keep doing. So always the previous day information is required. And similarly for weather forecasting everywhere. And other algorithms cannot do this because only recurrent will have the information fed back. So the applications, anyway, I've discussed. It is text generation, and then text generation means if you give one or two words, then the next word can be combined, and then it can predict what can come next, because it can search with the existing 2-3 words, 2-3 letters it has received. It can search with the database, and then it can predict what can come next. So that way, anyway, we will be looking at the examples also shortly. So for here, if you see these images, then from the image, it can be recognized that a person is riding a bike, and then some dogs are playing, all this. So all this you can make out by looking at the image. So by looking at the image, what is the object that is present, and whether it is stationary or is it moving, all those can be made. If it is a moving thing, then you need a video and 2-3 frames you require to find whether the object in one frame in this particular location, if it is moved to another location in the next frame, then it can tell that the person is riding, or the dogs are playing, or the people are playing, etc. And here the cat and the elephants are actually sitting, I mean, they are stationary. So maybe in subsequent frames also, if there is no movement, it can be made that they are idle or sitting or laying, whatever. So it depends. So if you give an image, then from the image, the object has to be extracted. And for this, you should have a volume of images already stored in the data set. Okay. So all the animals, and then objects, and then different sort of games, and then instruments, vehicles, everything should be stored in the database. Only then, if a biker is riding, it can recognize a person, not necessary that it is me or you. It has to just, if it is a caption, then it is just a person, so it has to recognize a bike only, so, or a person in general. So if those are there in the data set, then it will compare quickly. That is why we need a deep network here. Quickly it can compare, search parallelly, and find what is that particular object that is seen, and then it can recognize, yes, it is a bike, and then it can start formulating the caption. And there are some failure cases also, because the objects resembles, sometimes the resemblance will lead to misclassification. So these are some of the cases the confusion happens. So when do we need? Whenever there is a temporal dynamics. Actually, there are two things that is involved. One is spatial, another one is temporal. So spatial means the one that is happening around the same place. Temporal means within the time limit it is happening together. Like for example, if you are using a for loop, then in the for loop, I give for I equal to 1 to 100, sum equal to sum plus I. If I give in a calculation of factorial, then what happens is that for loop runs 100 times, isn't it? So in that case, what happens? The sum equal to sum plus I, that variable will be accessed 100 times. So while storing this particular statement in the memory, usually this for loop statement and this next statement will be stored together in the subsequent memory location, not in two different pages in the main memory. That is one thing, so that they can be accessed instead of jumping over to every time. The program counter need not have to fetch address from a different page and put it. So it can be kept together, so that with one increment it can do the next operation. That means all the operations that are occurring together as a bunch in a loop can be stored in subsequent location. That is called spatial. And then when you say temporal, what it means is, for example, for a bunch of statements in a for loop, let us assume if it takes 5 seconds, then For every 5 seconds, the same statements are repeating, isn't it? So that is the time interval. So that is called temporal dynamics. I can give one more example. Suppose in our college campus, if I say at 8:30 now it is raining, then I can say that at 8 o'clock it has rained and at 9 o'clock it has rained. So that is temporal dynamics. Suppose if I say in the campus it is raining, then I can say that in Sarjapur Road it is raining now and in Hosa Road it is raining now. That is spatial dynamics. Okay, I think you get the difference, right? So here in this RNN, we need to make a note of this temporal dynamics more than the spatial dynamics or the spatial content. That means how they are related with respect to time. As you have seen in the previous images for captioning examples, if a person is moving from one place to the other, or if a ball is moving, or if some people are moving, then in the first frame of the video, if the object is seen in the left hand side and if the ball is moving to the right edge within few seconds, then you have to identify through the keyframes that there is a change in time, and hence the correspondingly the position of the object is also changing. That is the temporal dynamics. And then the time series data is an example. And the applications of RNN based on the number of inputs and the output. Okay, if I give one input, if I get one output, then it is 1-to-1. If I give one input and I get multiple outputs, then that is 1-to-many. Similarly, you will have many-to-one and many-to-many. So we will see examples for each. The first one is called as a vanilla neural network. That means the gradient descent algorithm, what is being used in this is actually called as a vanilla gradient. Basically, there is not much significance to that vanilla, but it is just named like that. So here you will have a fixed input and a fixed output. That means you give a still image and you will try to classify whether it is a dog or a cat, then that is a 1-to-1. And then image captioning is 1-to-many. That means you give one image and then you try to make a caption out of it, sequence of words. So that is 1-to-many. So one example is given here. A dog jumps over this bar. So it is actually, you have to segment this several objects in the image. There is a bar, there is a dog, and what the dog is doing. So all the three are to be separated parallelly simultaneously when the image is given. So all the objects should be identified, and then what that object is doing also should be identified. And then it has to roll out and then say that the dog is jumping over the bar. Okay, so what you can read the third point. So the picture of the dog will first go through the CNN and then it will go to an RNN. Then the network will describe the picture as black and white dog jumps over the bar. Why it has to go to a RNN? Why it has to first go through a CNN? The answer is given in the fourth statement. First, when it goes to CNN, what happens? An image processing is happening. So all the objects in the image are segmented and recognized. That means there is a bar that will be recognized, and there is a dog that will be recognized. So, and then once when the dog is recognized, the next level in the recognition happens. That means what is the nature of the dog or color of the dog. So the dog is a combination of black and white. So that is also be recognized at the next level by a CNN. So that is why in a CNN, you have to have multiple layers. If I'm just recognizing a dog, then one block is sufficient. If I want to say what is the color, black or a white, then you use one more block to separate black and a white. So that is how it goes on. So a CNN module will first recognize the different objects. Then when that objects, what it has recognized, when it goes to an RNN, it makes a note of it and then it makes a sentence. The next is many to one. So this is like in NLP you might have studied. This is for sentiment classification. When you give a sequence of words, then the sentiment analysis is done. If you are doing any project in NLP, you can combine with this RNN topic very well. Or if you are doing a project for our course also using NLP, you can do it. So in many to one, what happens is sentiment analysis. Like for example, if you are going to a shop and if you are looking at a mobile phone for purchase, you will be looking at it and what kind of comments you are giving. Whether the battery is good, camera is good, this many megapixels, and you give some good comments, and then based on the comments, the shop owner can decide whether you are going to buy it or not. Okay, based on the positivity in the comments that you make. Okay, so in your statement, if you make words like it is good, awesome, amazing, such positive words will make the shop owner to believe that okay, this person is giving a very good feedback, so he may buy it. Something by looking at facial expressions also, if the consumer is giving an expression happiness, then the shop owner will feel happy. Okay, he is happy with the product, he may buy it. Things like that. So from the statement, what you make, this is really amazing, it is damn good. If you say, then amazing, good, excellent. So those words are captured, and then based on those words, its prediction can be made and a positive rating can be given. Suppose if you say it is not good or it is bad or battery is poor, something if you make, then accordingly the sentiment analysis can be made, and then the shop owner may feel okay, this person is not going to buy. Then many to many, it is machine translation. There are two pictures, many to many, adjacent to each other. The first one is actually there is a shift in the time. If you see, the input goes to first one set of hidden layers, and then there will be time shifting, and then you will get the output. Whereas in the next one, it is connected one to one. So the translation happens. So the Google Translator uses this concept, many to many. So for example, from English, if I'm doing a machine translation to another language, then if it is boy or a girl, then accordingly the gender translation also happens. Okay. So those things should be taken care in a automated translation system. If a GUI is developed and in the backend, if all the words are stored in the dictionary, then based on boy, if I use him or he, then accordingly the gender word should get substituted. If I use she, her, then accordingly the gender word should be substituted. So those things should be taken care if I choose the translation option. Okay, so basically you need the short-term information. That means in a sentence, if it depends on, I use, if I start with he or boy, then in that sentence, if there are only boys in that case, then continuously the same gender should be remaining in the memory to make the translation. Okay, so that is where the RNN plays a role. It keeps a note of the gender and also the context. So if you read the last statement, the last couple of statements, not every example has to be related to text or images. There can be lots and lots of different applications. So suppose for a movie subtitles are made, then we can't do with CNN because you need to know the context, what was spoken in the previous shot, and because CNN cannot connect it, only RNN can connect it. So if subtitles are coming, I think, have you suppose if you are watching any YouTube live program, have you seen the subtitles coming automatically? Any live show, if it is being telecasted in YouTube channel, have you seen the translation coming automatically based on the person who is speaking? That actually follows this. There will be some mistakes also, but it comes spontaneously. So for video classification on frame level, this many to many is used, and without this, that's the difference, the synced sequence and output. So now next we are going to see the network architecture. What is happening is how a simple ANN, simple ANN means how a multi-layer perceptron, a feed-forward network, can be made into a RNN just by a small twist in the feed-forward network. How it can be converted to an RNN? It is a transformation. It is mentioned a transformation. That means you are going to take a ANN, a multi-layered feed-forward perceptron, and then how we are converting it into an RNN. Okay. So in this previous statement diagram, here you have I have shown the color difference: yellow for input, green for hidden, and red for the output. So you are going to squash it. That means you are going to place one above the other like this. And then all the multiple arrows are combined to form a single arrow from 1 to 1, from input to hidden and from hidden to output. But if you expand, it will have, if you zoom and see, or if you pull down like an elastic, then everything will come out. And it is being made vertical. Now you see what happens from the hidden layer, the output which is going to the output is actually fed back once again to the hidden layer. So this is how it is made. And then once again it is expanded, rolled out. So when you roll out, what happens? What is being fed back, it is actually expanded. That means the previous information, what is being fed back, it is actually shown here. So if you take the last level, then what is being fed back actually comes from all the previous levels. Are you able to follow this? Let me just show. If you take this one, this is actually all this. This is actually all this. Okay. So to this output, an input comes from the hidden layer, and this same output is fed back. That is what is shown here. So the neurons can pass information on to themselves in the future and analyze things. Okay. So I think you can recollect this image. We have seen in the day 2 slides of the initial ANN classes. So the output is again fed back everywhere. So the information cycles through a loop. When it makes a decision, it takes into consideration the current input and also what it has learned from the inputs it received. previously. And now I would like you to recollect with the example. If it is Monday or if it is sunny, what dinner was prepared, and the next day is Tuesday. So one will ideally recollect what was the day yesterday and what dinner was prepared. And if you know the order, then today this will be the dinner that one can recollect. So how does an RNN works? So the feed-forward networks have no memory and therefore they cannot predict what will come next. But it can only consider the current input and it has no notion of order in time. So that is why they can't remember anything what happened in the past during the training. So whereas in case of RNN, we are giving the output that is fed back. So these are some of the parameters which we need to remember and how it is to be taken care. So far, the topic still now I have discussed. I was relating you to one video for the dinner preparation, and here in this model we need to follow one more video which I have shared, the recurrent and LSTM video, where the internal all this mathematical concepts and equations would have been explained. So if you take this as one RNN layer and the input, and this is the hidden and this is the output. Here you have the feedback, and when you roll out it will expand. Okay, underneath it will have many, as we have seen earlier. So the new state of that particular node or the output is a function of some parameters. Okay, those parameters are written as W. It is a function of two variables. One is the old state and the other one is the input vector given at that particular point of time. Okay, so this T refers to the time. And this T minus 1 refers to the, say this T, if I say T is 5 here, the current time is 5 at this particular instant, then T minus 1 refers to 4, the previous instant. Okay, so in time shifting what happens? It is 0, T minus 1, T minus 2, T minus 3, etc. if you see the backward. Okay. So the current instant, if it is referred as T, then the previous instant is referred to as T minus 1. So the new state, the current state is a function of this. F represents function of the parameters W, which is comprising of two attributes or two parameters. One is the old state and the other one is the input given at that point of time. So suppose if I want to give a word neuron, this is the word neuron that I want to give. Then if it is a feed forward neural network, if I give the word neuron, what happens is, first I will give this N, then I will give E, U, then R one by one. By the time it reaches the character R, it would have forgotten the first three. Okay, and if this word neuron is stored in my dictionary, then it cannot match with this pattern and it cannot search and give me an output neuron. It has to concatenate one by one, wait for all the inputs, all the 6 letters. Finally, it will concatenate and show me an output neuron. Whereas if I use an RNN, what happens is, if I give NEU, then by the time it reaches R, then it will remember this NEU because it is fed back. And then with the portion of the word, it can match with the dictionary. If there is a database and it is being trained upon, it can compare and it can find a match for the pattern neuron and it can display that. Okay. that is one way for pattern matching. Or one more thing what it can do is it need not have to wait for concatenation till it waits for the last. What it can do is first time when you give n will go out. Next time if you give ne will together go out. Then if you give u, neu will together go out. Then if you give r, then neu r will go together out. That means every time it is concatenating, so that at the end you need not have to wait for all the elements to be, all the letters to be received and then concatenation. Immediately it will be concatenated and then it will be given out. So this RNN will have two inputs. One is for the present, another one is for the recent past. So that is why it can take care of the sequence of data and feed forward neural networks like other deep learning algorithms. Similarly, this also will have a weight matrix, and then the weight matrix will be applied to the current and also to the previous input. Okay, so what we are going to do this, in the earlier case in a CNN, we were using the backpropagation network for finding the gradient and then calculating the error and tuning the error, and the weights will be updated. In the filter, if you choose one weight, if you are unable to recognize a pattern, we will be updating the weight till the filter extracts the proper portion of the image or any data for classification. So we were using a backpropagation network, but here, or just backpropagation. Here we are going to use backpropagation through time. Here also we will be using gradient descent, and instead of simple backpropagation, we'll be using backpropagation through time. So I have given one link. I think you have already watched this link. Same link. So now from my entire slides, I have used that particular video only. That is why I have given the citation here. Since it is very good and easy for me to understand, I thought I can use that as well for my lecture and slide preparation, and you can also watch it and understand quickly. So that is the idea. So as the formula was given earlier, earlier it was mentioned as h and x. Some variable only is changing here. So the output at a particular time is a function of two parameters: the state of the current and state of the previous. Input at the time at step t, and then the state at time t minus 1. It is the same thing once again, and we'll be using a tan hyperbolic activation function here. It is one of the, we can use binary sigmoid, bipolar sigmoid, or tan h, any of the differentiable activation function here to reduce the error or to calculate the error, because in a backpropagation we need to calculate the gradient, so we can use a tan hyperbolic function here. So the state can be determined using a tan hyperbolic here. I think we can continue in the next class with a more detailed description. If anyone has not gone through the video, you can go through and come. So we will have a more detailed explanation on this tomorrow. So I would like to stop here, and then because a little bit of mathematics and concepts are involved here, and I will be explaining this backpropagation through time. So please go through the video and come. So I have stopped at slide number 32. We'll continue from 32. Tomorrow afternoon 1:45, let us meet.